shadows hide you? I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here, Fred shouts.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred!
Welcome to episode 492 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, April 10th, 2025 in the evening. Coming to you from Numbergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Grizzly Bear, May, SSJ5 Goku, and NY Kiwi. And by our patrons of the week, Sassnack and Grumpy Face. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. I, of course, have been playing a form of Blood DK. I say a form because other people were playing Blood DK. Not so much anymore, so maybe I can do it. I don't know. But yeah, people were doing like actual triple blood with vampiric blood. I think because I want to say it's better into the like Naralex priest. Could be wrong, but my impression was like, well, you spend fewer corpses and less mana, and you turbo draw because vampiric blood actually draws a card, unlike the 6-drop make 2 5/5s. And yeah, so it's just like easier to play. You super churn through the deck, so it's less bad running Pyro Poison. And those are your clears. It's like double Pyro Poison, double Corpse Explosion, and then lots of draw, lots of stuff. You get to your end of the deck.
Expanse, right?
Play Kill Jaden. Yeah, Ceaseless, sure. Play Kill Jaden, and it's like you outlast the aggro decks, and then once your deck is gone, you play Kill Jaden, and hope you get there against me. But I hate mirrors, so I was like, well, I actually think that Discover an Undead is often better than just straight Kill Jaden. So I sort of took notes from what was in the straight Blood DK and made a super trimmed Blood Unholy so that I could run Headless Horseman. And, I'm sure it shifts certain matchups a little bit, but I did tend to win the mirrors because it doesn't matter how big their demons are if, say one of them has Taunt and you Black Knight it. There's just a lot more potential to discover things that give you initiative when you're discovering an undead versus getting random demons, even if they're big demons. Not to say I won every time, but certainly if it came down to like we played Kill Jaden at similar times, or I was even a bit late because I had to search for the Headless Horseman's head, I often would still have the edge because I was discovering undead and they were not. And since the general wisdom is to like play Kill Jaden as quickly as possible so it doesn't get dirty ratted, people would like do that, not have as many clears in their hand. And then I would be discovering an undead, find Sourfang, and Sourfang is really good in that matchup because you just get to play taunts every turn. Yeah, that was going great for a while until I don't know that things adjusted to Blood DK or if it just sort of happened, but actually a deck that you've been playing, Megasa, can be some trouble, which is Imbue Druid. Imbue Mage as well, particularly some that are running like Imbue and Protoss stuff. And then the deck that I switched to, which is Wheel Warlock.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Wheel Warlock just sort of appeared a day or two ago. Out of China, I think, originally.
Of course.
Of course.
As those things tend to do, yes.
As something with this nutty would tend to do.
I don't know if it's like us Westerners are just not always great at thinking outside the box or what it is.
Well,
But
there's a lot more people trying things in China and a lot more high-level players.
Yeah.
So like, and they're also just kind of like, they're completely disconnected from our social media, right? So
that's true.
So they're also brewing up things in a complete vacuum, whereas we, outside of China, we have access to basically anytime anybody else outside of China posts lists, then everybody knows about it right away. But they're not really seeing that inside of China unless they have someone who's the equivalent of Guion, I think is how you pronounce it. He's the one who posts a lot of the deck lists from the China server that are doing well onto Twitter that, you know, and then they eventually make the rounds here, but that sometimes takes a little bit longer. But you just have a lot more people who are just brewing up stuff in a vacuum effectively. It's actually kind of fascinating.
Yeah,
that
totally.
You've got kind of like this self-contained, like very large region that's completely walled off from the rest of the world, and how like their meta adjusts versus our meta.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that the meta that we get is not necessarily like preordained by the cards, right? It's a matter of what people come up with, what they see other people are coming up with. And so like every day I've been seeing different things. And even like the VS report, they had to add in stuff from like, oh, this appeared on Wednesday. And then even since the VS report was posted this morning, there's already new developments, such as the Shanty Paladin that's been coming up in the ranks. So, and I've actually been seeing a little bit less Wheel Warlock now. But for anyone who hasn't seen the Wheel Warlock, Wheel is part of the deck, but Wheel is not the only thing. You're running a card that we made merciless fun of, Eternal Layover. Eternal Layover is the 4-mana Death Knight card from Perils that gives everything reborn and then kills everything on both sides of the board. Turns out that's good with Ultralisk Caverns as a clear.
Yeah. But in fairness, it was not good then.
in fairness, it was very bad in Perils.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still like you had table flip back then, and you still have table flip, but now you have another thing that you can use with table flip where it gets a little bit better.
You have another thing, and in particular, you have a thing that you can choose to just leave on the board for that eventuality. Like the deck is not so much about, is really not at all about the 8/8s. Like sometimes you get people that way, but the Hydralisks are much more rush than threats. So you're a lot more content sometimes to just say, yeah, I could get an 8/8. I could maybe even get 2 8/8s if I have the tourist, but actually I need that last charge on the location to pair with Eternal Layover. So,
and really even the big star of the show is Ancient of Yore, which Edel, I feel like you were prescient on this. You were like, this card is going to see a lot of play. I remember that from one of our pre-release shows. You can get so many of these things because you play Cursed Campaign, another card that we were like, what is this card? To be fair, so was everyone, and it wasn't a good card. Cursed Campaign is a 3-mana warlock spell that gives something death rattle. When it dies, summon 2 dormant copies of the minion. Well, Ancient of Yore is the one that when it's dormant, it gives you 5 armor, and it draws you a card. So when you get 2 dormant copies of that, that's really good, because they both give you 5 armor and draw you a card. Oh, and by the way, when Eternal Layover kills the Ancient of Yore, it comes back dormant, not with 1 health. I've seen people with like 5 Ancient of Yores.
Yeah.
But basically, what you do is you play Ancient of Yore on 5, and then on 7, you have the Ultralisk Caverns set up already. You play Cursed Campaign, and then Eternal Layover, and that's 3 by itself.
And there were versions of this deck that were hard running Wisp just
Oh,
to
yeah.
be able to throw cards down on that turn, because you're drawing 4 cards the turns that those are coming back, and you kind of need to dump your hand, because if you haven't drawn a Kill Jaden or a Wheel, and that's a matchup where you need those things, you really don't want to burn those. And so it's a lot of like, you have Mortal Coil, you've got a lot of like 1 and 2 cost things. You have the spell that destroys a mana crystal but gives you 2 and 2 turns. You're running 2 of those. I forget, like Fractured something.
Fractured Power.
Fractured Power, yeah. I was seeing that in some of the lists just so that you could do that and just get to turn 5 faster to be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to start doing this.
Like the ideal curve is Fractured Power on 2. You don't want to coin it out because that doesn't work how you want it to. You do still have a crystal to be destroyed on 1, right? So you'd rather do your turn 2 twice than your turn 1 twice. So yeah, you Fractured Power on 2. You have a second 2 cost turn where you either Hero Power or like play a Dreadhound Handler, maybe even a Slippery Slope, and then you jump right to 5. Right? It's very like disorienting because
Yes.
like you're only technically ramping 1 crystal the same way a Mana Growth would, but you're going from 2 to 5, and yeah, then you can immediately there are so many times where it's just like, yeah, they've got like 10 power on board, but I just play Ancient of Yore. Like,
Yeah.
I actually did a coaching of that earlier today, and we were facing down quite a bit of damage. And I said, yeah, but we're at 60 life. We don't care. We're just going to play more Ancients of Yore, and we'll be at even more life. Because you have a good clear with the Ultralisk Caverns and the Eternal Layover, but you don't have a ton of that. So you do
Yeah.
want to meet it out.
Yeah.
And then ultimately you wheel and kill Jaden, and like you can kill them even just with the kill Jaden, but for most things, like you wheel and then the kill Jaden keeps you from fatiguing, and then they eventually die to wheel, and so that can be good against the Death Knights because the Death Knights are just trying to kill you with kill Jaden and don't have a wheel.
So, secret tech, I tend to kill Jaden first.
Yeah.
Because then you wheel, and no matter what Ceaseless cost before, it is now 0 because you have destroyed 30 cards. It's very funny to watch that number just like roll down from, usually by the time you can play that sequence, it's already, 30 or less. But yeah. It's just like, okay, and sometimes you do the big setup of many dormant Ancients of Yore, and it's like, well, you're gonna be burning actual cards anyway or fatiguing, so you want to play the Kill Jaden first to stop that. Often, so like I try to go set up a bunch of dormant Ancient of Yore, then we play, throw out a bunch of cards as much as we can and kill Jaden. So you start drawing random demons. Doesn't matter that they're small. And then it doesn't matter if you burn them either, right? and then the next turn is like wheel Ceaseless or something like that. I do try and hold on to Ceaseless as much as possible for like emergency escape button if I can help it. Because, if you can, 1, you've got a lot of life to work with. 2, you do want to be able to leverage those, still a bunch of 5/5s when they all wake up. So,
that's still some pressure. And that helps you if you need to live on the wheel turn or live on a future turn, because you still have the 5 turns. But it can be surprisingly difficult to smork them down. It as the opponent facing the wheel lock, because they get so much armor.
But it's still like if there's a big board, and that's why Imbue Druid is kind of such trouble for them, is that they just can't deal with repeated threats. Like once they start getting really big, like then you're into Ceaseless territory, and like there's only so many clears that you have, and they're often need to come in pairs. Like you need an Eternal Layover plus something to clear, and then you don't have that many of those. Like you can use your minions to test, but like something like an Imbue Druid, if they really get going very quickly, it's sometimes hard to be able to clear those things off. And also the sing along buddy is often an issue because it's 4 health and a lot of your things deal 3. Like
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like if they keep that up for a couple turns, it just gets very hard to do that. I mean, you have to be planning ahead for that to some extent, but if they can keep consistent pressure, sometimes it's just you feel like you need to clear, but you can only clear so many times.
I do wonder if the Warlock might be a little bit of a skill cap deck.
Yeah.
Because I definitely I hear the problems you're talking about, and I struggled with them, and then I like figured it out.
Yeah.
Demon Hunter is harder because giving their stuff reborn and resummoning it is really bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Eternal Layover is your primary clear, and that is they're like, please, thank you, like do that.
Thank you for giving all my ball hogs.
There
and
are times where it's like,
Veldies.
okay, I think I want to like pop their Fell Hunter so that it's, or like set this up so that it's mostly 3/3s. So I do the Eternal Layover clear and like then follow up for a full clean with table flip. It gets very messy. But I feel like the number one way you lose is just like Ancient of Yours in the bottom 10.
Yeah.
So that's probably the top keep for me in the Mulligan, even though it's a 5-cost card. It is like, this is definitely a deck that you can look at it and just not know what's going on. Like, not recognize. There have been times where I have Cursed Campaigned my Ziliax, and it was good, but I lost because I did not Cursed Campaign, because I needed to like do that on Ancient of Yore for a second time or something. Because when you're getting random demons, getting more of them is good for options. So like you can hit the good ones that will actually be useful, because some of them are useful in like getting you to the completion of wheel. Other times it is good it will be enough to curse campaign on Ziliax, because like
and sometimes you have to do that because you got the Ancient of Yours on time, but the Curse campaigns were both in the bottom and you didn't draw into them like you were kind of hoping you would, right? Like you draw a lot, and you kind of have to play the Ancients of Yore and hope you draw into them, and sometimes they're just not there. And then you don't have them, and then you have to try to find something to do with this 3-mana card. Or the other problem I've had occasionally is like the consume, you only have the 2 Ultralisk Caverns.
Right.
And you have 2 consumes and like 1 Nidus Worm. And then sometimes the consumes are on the bottom, and by the time that you draw them, their Ultralisk Caverns are gone. And then it's like, well, now I have these 2 1-cost spells that I literally cannot cast.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's so important with the Ancient of Yore, because that is how this is oddly a turbo draw Warlock deck that wants to not tap.
Yeah.
Because you in fact need space in your hand for when Ancient of Yore starts drawing you a gazillion cards. But the Rotheart Dryads help a ton, just so you, because the things like you must have before you kill Jaden or can like draw so many cards that you're burning some are, well, obviously kill Jaden for one, wheel, and ceaseless, right? But once you have those 3, it's kind of like, okay, do I have enough clears to survive playing kill Jaden, and then wheel, and but a lot of times you're sort of okay with burning as long as you have those 3.
Yeah.
But it's weird that it is an Ancient of Yore deck. I called it Turbo Fog in my library because it's not a perfect analogy, but for any Magic the Gathering folks out there, Turbo Fog is a deck around a card called Fog that basically says prevent all combat damage this turn. It's an instant, so traditionally it's like they make an attack with a bunch of stuff. You say fog. No combat damage is dealt. There were sort of multiple printings of this effect in the formats where it was played. So you used a bunch of them along with stuff that drew both players cards, additional cards. And you would mill your opponent, right? You would make them run out of cards before you, which in Magic is an auto loss once your deck is gone and you can't draw. Or you try and draw from an empty library. In this, it's kind of the opposite. You mill yourself until there's nothing left. Then you play Kill Jaden, so you have a deck again, and you wheel. But it's similar in the sense that it's like you're making their minions not matter, and then winning with something other than damage. And very occasionally you win with damage, or just because they don't have stuff anymore. Like the number of times I've like gotten the Ancient of Yore combo off, and like a rogue or something else that doesn't have staying power was just like, nope, like we're done. You just gained 20 life, and you're gonna do it again next turn.
Yeah, which is, by the way, the correct move if you are that, like, so if you're the aggressive deck and the opponent does something like that, you think, what do I have left in my deck? Is there any top deck over the next 2 turns that might win me this game? And if there isn't, you can just leave. Like, it's okay.
Deal 40 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casual 40 damage. Yeah. I mean, I guess this is kind of more like a laboratory maniac deck than a mill deck, right?
Yeah, I guess that's
Laboratory
true.
Maniac is a card in Magic that says if you draw a card when your library is empty, you win the game. So then you just want to empty your own library and then
that's fair.
do that. Yeah, but yeah, anyway,
So,
I have been playing the other deck that you just mentioned, the Demon Hunter, which has kind of come up in the past like day or two. And we kind of talked about this when we talked about the nerfs, that we thought something like this might happen, but it took a little while for it to come together. We're calling it's basically being called Cliff Dive Demon Hunter right now because it runs Cliff Dive, even though Cliff Dive is probably like the least important part. I don't know about the least important, but it's a less important part of the deck, but it is still, it is still something that you're doing. So you're basically running Ball Hogs with Ravenous Fell Hunters to just resurrect them over and over and over again. Ball Hog, for those of you who don't remember, is a 4-mana 3/3 with Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Deal 3 damage to the lowest health enemy, and it has lifesteal. So you're constantly blowing away things and then healing in little chunks of 3. So you play the Ball Hog, you play the Ravenous Fell Hunter that summons 2 more Ball Hogs, then you play a Return Policy, which gives you another copy of a Death Rattle and triggers its effect. Ideally, you're getting that off the Fell Hunter, so you're getting 2 more Ball Hogs on the board, and then you have another Fell Hunter you can play. And then you just kind of keep doing that and keep chipping away at the opponent. And we're running Cliff Dive so that we can pull more Ravenous Fell Hunters and just get them out and get the Death Rattle to go off. We have Illidari Inquisitors, because why not? And then we have Magtheridon, because when you pull Magtheridon out with a Cliff Dive, it also goes dormant and then just starts doing the 3 damage thing. So it never goes back in the deck.
Just stays there. Yeah, it's sort of a gotcha.
Yeah.
And there's also times where like you don't draw the Ball Hog, but then like I've seen people just Cliff Dive on 6 after having a Dread Seeds start, but no Ball Hog. And I think they're just trying to hit the Ball Hog.
Yeah.
It is hilarious when they pull like double Fell Hunter and are just like,
oh, and no Ball Hog.
I can't kill these off.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll do sometimes, because you're running Tusk Piercer, which is the draw a Death Rattle weapon, and sometimes you just whiff, because like the only Death Rattles are Ball Hogs and Fell Hunters, but sometimes you draw the Fell Hunter when you really needed a Ball Hog. Yeah. And then I'll actually just play Return Policy, because Return Policy says Death Rattle card, not Death Rattle minion.
Yeah.
So you can do that, get another Tusk Piercer, and then immediately draw another Death Rattle minion out of the deck. And that it's like a 2 out of 3 are Ball Hogs at that point. So you're almost guaranteed to get it. And if you don't, then the other Tusk Piercer will get it for you. It sucks. You don't want to do that, but it's also better than not having a ball hog until having both the ball hogs stuck in the bottom and 10 for like most of the game and not being able to get at them. So,
Yeah.
And you usually have enough value.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're also running Shaladrasil, right? So like that's another finisher that you have. You can corrupt that with whatever you didn't draw off the cliff dive, like one of the Inquisitors or Magtheridon. And the Vicious Syndicate, like it was running Jump Scare, which is just bad in the deck. It's like discovering a demon and then shuffling into your deck, which you really don't want to do, because then you're just getting stuff in there that you don't want to be pulling with the cliff dive necessarily. But they flipped that out for Defiled Spear, which is the 4-mana 2/3 weapon that says after your hero attacks an enemy, deal your hero's attack damage to another random enemy.
Sure.
I've been more impressed than I thought I was going to be with that card. Just because, like, you run Chaos Strike, right? You have the Dread Seed that gives you +3 attack. And, like, what it lets you do is you almost always want to go face with it. Unless there's a 50-50 that you can really lose hard. Because the face is always an option. So, like, if you hit into a minion and you want it to go face, you want it to hit the other minion, you have a 50-50 of it going face. If you go face, you've taken no damage as opposed to running your face into their minion, but also it's guaranteed to hit one of the minions rather than hitting their face again. So that's something you probably want to go face unless you absolutely don't have a choice. But there have been some times that I'll just like, I can't take the risk. I need to kill like a chirurgeon or something that's going to get out of control and then do that. But I've been actually kind of impressed with that. Vision Syndicate said they just put it in there basically so you have another weapon loaded up that Illidar, so allow you to attack with an Illidar Inquisitor out of the cliff dive on 6 or on curve out of your hand on 8, which makes a lot of sense.
That makes a big difference. Something else on this deck that isn't necessarily obvious unless you've seen an opponent do it to you is Infiltrate. Is the 3-mana choose a minion, deal 3 damage to all other minions. You can use that to kill off your own Fell Hunter or even your own Ball Hogs if you need the healing and the damage now. Or it also helps clear the opponent's board. So I've seen that happen, or sometimes the mirror for this is kind of hilarious because you're both just yo-yoing health. Like if you both get the Ball Hogs at about the same time, then it's just like, I deal a bunch of damage and heal. Now I deal a bunch of damage and heal. And just like the 2 Ball Hogs, like if you have like 2 boards of Ball Hogs, they're just like shooting each other back and forth all the way down the line because it always hits the lowest health.
It's like that old like science video of like there's a like a plastic cube filled with mouse traps that all have ping pong balls on them. And then they drop one ping pong ball in that sets off like one mouse trap, and then they all just start like firing off at each other.
Exactly like that. One other small thing to note that an opponent of mine today got messed up by. So Immolation Aura is a good card in the deck. It's 2 mana, deal 1 damage to all minions twice. Like you just kind of need that for survivability. If you have a Ball Hog that's already damaged, like that already has 1 health and it dies to the Immolation Aura, it will shoot before the second Immolation Aura goes off.
Oh.
So it'll probably hit something with 1 health that's about to die. You'll still heal. But if you were counting on that going face, it's a very specific situation, but I had it come up once when I was playing the deck and once when an opponent was playing the deck.
Yeah.
I could see them hovering like, wait a minute.
One other interaction that is not new, but it's something that it's been a minute since we had Chopper DH. So people might have probably forgotten about it, is that you can use it. You're running double red card in this deck, and you can use red card to make Magtheridon dormant again. And then he starts shooting again. So do keep that in mind. Like, it's good to get rid of a taunt. And generally what you're doing is you're trying to get rid of like a small health thing because you want like a Ball Hog to hit a slightly bigger thing and kill it. But sometimes you just have a red card left over. And then once you get Magtheridon and it wakes up, like, okay, go back to sleep and start, shooting everything for 3 again. And that's 6 more damage, right? If you can do that twice, that's 12 more damage. I mean, it's over 4 more turns, but sometimes that's what you need to be able to get over the line.
Yeah. Plus the red card's really good in the mirror because you red card their Fell Hunter when they put it down.
Yeah. Or their Ball Hog, I guess. Because if the
Ball
Hog never dies,
yeah,
then nothing.
It just slows them down.
Yeah.
So it can help keep you that little bit ahead. It is a fun deck. I played a little bit of it and did pretty well. The Imbue Druid is pretty good into it, so I switched to that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been floundering at like Diamond 5 like most of the week. This has been a really exhausting week anyway because the kids' play was this weekend, which is just us running around constantly and worrying more than me, thankfully. And I also decided to go to a Magic pre-release on Friday night, which was kind of a disaster.
Oh no.
Because they were all at the play, right? I only go to one showing of the play. So I was there. So I decided to go to this pre-release. I lost the first 2 rounds. And then I was thinking about dropping because I was tired, but I'm like, what am I going to do? Just sit at home by myself. So I decided to wait it out. So I finished like half an hour into the hour-long round 2, got to round 3, and it was a bye. So then I had to sit there for another. So I sat there for another hour. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just go get some dinner. I'll sit it because the store has like a lunch counter in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some food. I played Hearthstone on my phone while I was waiting for round 4. Get to round 4, and my opponent doesn't show up.
Oh no! And you're like, well, shoot, I should have gone home.
I should have gone home or at least brought a commander deck or something because I sat in the store for like 2 hours not playing anything and waiting around for something to happen.
That's the worst.
On top of everything else, so I've just been kind of tired from the play and everything else. And we had a friend in town at the same time. We had another friend who was staying with us who was going to see the play, and and then it's just been nonstop since then. So I've been not playing great anyway, but the Demon Hunter is like the first one that I felt like I'm actually getting some traction with. So I'm looking forward to playing that a little bit more this weekend.
I have just a little bit here. One update on the computer, since I talked about this last week. My computer has returned from the dead after I dumped the orange juice on it. They had to replace the keyboard, the trackpad, the chassis. The screen actually was just because it had a scratch on it, which it did. So that's nice.
Oh, I see. So this is how you get a screen replacement. I see how this goes. Okay.
Just dump orange juice on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you have Apple Care first. So
Apple Care for your orange juice. Yeah.
Yeah. But they did not replace the actual hard drive or the CPU, to my surprise. So I got it back and it was immediately all ready to go. In terms of, I had this week off from teaching, so I have been playing a lot and really enjoying the patch. I started out playing a bunch of Menagerie Priest, which was doing really well initially. Zarimi Priest was like the king of the meta, but it's really not the same kind of Zarimi that I enjoy playing. I've actually only played like 2 games of it, one with the coaching. It's really an OTK deck, and it seemed like it was just going to run away with the format for like 12 hours, and then it turned out never mind. But the Menagerie Priest was good in that meta, and I took out the Pain package and put in Mixologist because I just really like that card. I put in Haywire Power Ziliax because sometimes if they just can't deal with the 5/7, then it does 10 to them next turn, and if they still can't deal with it, then it kills them. So occasionally that just wins you the game. But the Pain package is also good. I play a lot of Imbue Druid. We'll talk about that later. Today there's been a Shanty Paladin. I tried so hard to make this work back in Perils. World 8 and I kept mostly World 8 was making the list, and I was trying all of them every time that he made a new one for so long, and it just didn't quite work. But now it actually works pretty well. It's definitely not refined yet, so I didn't want to talk about it in too much detail because I don't know what form it's going to end up being in. But you have like Vicious Slither Spear and Life Saving Aura, and you just make like a really big slither. Divine Brew is amazing in this deck because it discounts both your Shanty and your Flickering Light bots, which is the giant, essentially. It's the Gigantify that gets cheaper for every holy spell that you've played. You're running Aegis of Light, which is summon a random 1-cost minion and give it taunt, imbue your hero power, but you're not planning to hit the hero power unless something really goes wrong. But like, to be fair, you weren't planning to hit your regular hero power either. So it's just like a holy spell that gives you a 1-cost minion and gives it taunt, and that's fine. And you're running Dragon Scale Armaments, which draws a spell that started in your deck and one that didn't. Just a cycle, that's a holy spell.
Do you have the Green Wings in that deck?
No.
No. And it
Oh.
wouldn't draw them even if you did, because they're
Yes.
not spells.
Oh, wow.
You can,
Yeah.
if you have had to hit the button because you had a terrible draw or something, it will draw that and you'll get like a 1-drop dragon, but like that's not the point. Don't feel like you have to do that before
Are
you
there
play
even-
armaments.
oh yeah, I guess there are 1-drop dragons because they're the chirurgeon and the
Whelp.
the whelp. Yeah.
Help and Amalgam of the Deep, which is actually, I guess that could work if you put a bunch of sunscreens on it.
Or the corrupted, like, +5/+5 thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you can do Lanessa stuff. Although we were talking about like maybe we don't even do that. And then you can do Ursul Saladricel, but really your plan A is Sea Shanty. And people have been experimenting with taking out some of those. I also got completely destroyed today by John Bray.
As one
Who
does.
was running, as one does, who was running Spike Ridge Steed, just like hard running it in his deck, which is the
Okay.
one that. And I was on Imbue Druid, and I just never got through his Righteous Protector because he kept putting Sunscreens and Divine Brews and then Spike Ridge Steed on it.
Yep.
And then he did double Sea Shanty, and I just died. So
Mm.
Yeah.
I actually disconnected right as I was trying to concede, so I hope that I actually conceded and didn't rope him out. I had just said,
Yeah.
well played, but hopefully he doesn't think I was being sarcastic.
Mm.
It was a good screenshot.
That reminds me, I don't remember what I was playing when I played into this, but I played against a hunter who wrecked me with Varanus today. And I forgot that
Ooh.
Varanus was a card that was in core until
Yeah.
literally that moment. Like, oh right, they put that back in core because I have not seen that once. Even like, I'm sure Sidisi's got it in like 6 decks, but like I've not seen it once. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, that sucks for me. Okay, cool.
Was that Galakron or Zenta Dragons?
One of those, yeah.
Which is why I don't really
one.
Yeah.
remember it from the first time. Yeah, but I mean, there's so many things that I want to try. Community member Alteris wrote up a very detailed hand buff Death Knight deck guide on Reddit that I linked in the show notes. I haven't played the deck, but it's kind of an under the radar deck that is doing well for some people at Top Legend. I've been ping-ponging around top 1K, sort of staying around 450, 500, up and then down and around the place, which for me, right after a rotation is really good. I think just because I've had so much time this week, which I normally wouldn't, and I just really clicked with this meta. And I did get under 200 for like approximately 6 minutes. I was rank 197 and then I queued into McBanterface.
Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah.
Yep.
So he was on Spell Mage, and I might have gotten him if he hadn't top decked his Rising Waves, but then it was just it just went downhill from there. Apparently, Spell Mage is actually like not an embarrassing deck right now,
I did
even if
face
you're not
one.
McBanterspace.
I was
yeah.
surprised.
You don't have to be McBanterface to play that deck if you want to play that deck.
I guess you can run Shaladrisil, so
Yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly works out.
That's how you get your minions, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, that is my week in Hearthstone.
All right. So why don't we talk about a little bit of news and then more decks? Because we got another deck to talk about in more detail than we already talked about. But we got a little bit of news first.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay, so we've had some more known issues pop up over the last few days. So yeah, so we're gonna go through those, just the ones that, not everything, obviously, as we normally don't do that. We don't read these like a weather report, but just the ones that are going to potentially affect you. So, well, I don't know if you're playing Wallow. Probably not, but if it's moved from hand to deck, it will lose all of its enchantments except for Sweet Dreams, which is the dark gift that gives it +4/+5 and place a card on top of your deck. This is consistent with the general rules of the deck of the game, but we know that this can be frustrating and counterproductive for Wallow. We're working on an exception to allow Wallow retain Dark Gifts when the card is moved from hand to deck by Sweet Dreams and only by Sweet Dreams, planned for an upcoming patch. So normally when you move backwards, you lose all your enchantments, and that includes Dark Gifts, but that, like, getting Dark Gifts is kind of Wallow's whole reason to exist. So yeah, that makes sense for them to do that. With Shaladrasil, it says, we'd like to clarify some of the confusion around this card. Whenever you play a card from hand, Shaladrasil will check the cost you see on itself, meaning Shaladrasil, versus the cost of the card you just played. If Shaladrasil's cost is lower, it will toggle its corrupted form. So that's probably relating to some of the Ursol stuff, and I guess there's there like a rogue thing with Shaladrasil also, where that's with the pirate that ruins everybody's day, right?
They changed that so that it had been bugged, but it hadn't been clear to everyone that it was a bug.
Mm-hmm.
That the what's it called? The 4/3 pirate for 5 mana would corrupt Shaladrasil when you played it, which is not how that's supposed to work. I believe it would still work if you played her and then you played something that same, like on 10 mana, and then you played a card that was 5 cost that had been 8 cost or something that cost more than the 4 mana Shaladrasil. That might work, I'm not sure, but she shouldn't corrupt Shaladrasil while being played because it doesn't cost 4 until after she's played.
Yeah, that's just the triggers being out of order in that case. Nice. Really,
it does work for Ursol.
Yes.
And I think this is just them trying to clarify, like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be working. Also, if you, for example, are playing Imbue Druid and you get a Shaladrasil off of the Horn of Nature, it'll cost 5 and it'll stay at 5. So if you cast something that costs 6, you don't really run anything like that in the deck, but if you did, it would corrupt the
you sometimes get the turtles, Best in Shell.
That's
right?
true.
Like you'll get the off of the spell that gives you 3 random druid spells. Like sometimes you'll get something really expensive.
Yes. So if you have that, you can corrupt it, even if it doesn't cost more than 7, because the Shaladrasil itself costs 5.
Yep. So they're investigating reports of triggers happening out of order on rare occasions, for example, with Cliff Dive and minions that have end of turn effect. So I believe the end of turn effects are they not supposed to trigger on Cliff Dive? I don't think they are, right? Because Cliff Dive's supposed to send them back. Like the Cliff Dive is, I don't want to say on the stack, because like that's gonna just, create a whole other conversation this is not relevant to, but like the Cliff Dive comes in first. So the Cliff Dive's end of turn effect should trigger first before any of the minions that it brought in, right? So then by the time that, say, Magtheridon's a bad example because it's dormant and it's not going back in the deck. But like if there's
the Drake, Briarspawn Drake is what people were doing with.
Yeah, that's what, because that was the original version of the Cliff Dive Demon Hunter. If the Cliff Dive brought out the Briarthorn Drake, the Drake should go back into the deck before it's allowed to go and attack something. But I guess every so often it was not doing that, which is probably not great for the people who thought that was a good idea to put into the deck for Cliff Dive in the first place, because then it validated that it was doing what they were supposed to do, like once.
It's been inconsistent, apparently, which is very frustrating to people who've been playing the deck, and part of why it's not in the deck. Because it wasn't, like, sometimes it was working, sometimes it's not. So that's hopefully they can fix that soon, because that sounds like the kind of bug that might be a little hard to track down, but they're looking into it.
So the death rattle given by Amphibious Spirit lacks functionality when copied. I'm assuming the minion is copied. not the effect as intended, right? I think that's probably what that means.
Yeah, I think that's what that means. If you copy the minion, because you can, like, essentially copy the Amphibian Spirit itself by using the 2/3 that triggers a death rattle.
Right.
That works fine. We know that.
Yeah.
So
Malorn is not being considered for the event quest Play 15 Wild Gods, which is one of the reasons I was playing the Imbue Druid earlier in the week. And that quest feels like it's taking forever, because it is, because you're only getting half credit, because you're probably only playing Wild Gods from Malorn in the first place. So yeah, they know about it. They'll work on that. And then Wisp Rider fails to trigger an imbued hero power after it was used. I think what this means is that if you press the button first, I don't know why you would do this. If you press the button first and then you play a Wisp Rider, it does not trigger the hero power. You're missing 1 damage if you do that anyway, so you shouldn't do that in the first place, but then you get double punished if you're doing that now. So don't do that. So that's it. There's more. You can go if there's something else, like a lot of collection type things, cosmetic things. You can go look at those. There's a bunch. It's a new patch. We're gonna have a bunch of, there's a lot of changes. We're gonna have a lot of issues. They will fix them probably, with our luck, probably before this episode is released. They will have been fixed in a hot fix on Friday, because that seems to be the way things go. So, if you are an aspiring creative director of Hearthstone, you can go apply for that job. That is a posting that has been found on Blizzard's career site. So in this role, you will set the creative vision for Hearthstone, working with cross-disciplinary teams to provide direction on tone, narrative, and visual design while ensuring a cohesive and inspiring experience for all of our players. We will work closely with leadership across design, art, engineering, and production to ensure every element of the game reflects our commitment to quality, diversity, and player surprise and delight. So if that sounds like you, good luck. That's that is a thing you can apply to. I'm sure that you probably are aware of it if that is something that you're looking at.
Of people who might listen to this, I would like to recommend one, Deck Tech.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone else.
I would like to think that the people who are already at Blizzard are aware that there is an opening on their team for that position. I would like to think they're not learning it from us, but you never know.
They might not have the confidence, and I'm saying, I think you should go for it.
Yes, agreed.
What?
All
Celestalon, Deck Tech, Korra.
Yeah.
These are my recommends.
Yeah. Okay. So we also have some shop updates. So there is a new and improved Heroes of Warcraft bundle. This is the pixel portraits. The original ones were pulled for concerns that they may have been AI generated. So there is a new batch. I don't remember how similar they are to the originals, but they sure are pixel portraits. So you can buy those in a bundle of 4. There's a Malfurion, a Thrall, a Jaina, and an Arthas for 4,000 runestones or $40 USD, and those come with that. I think it's just a card back along with it.
So, it's a Warcraft card back, but no card packs.
No card packs, and there's no way to buy these a la carte at the moment. So if you want them, it's all or nothing.
Yeah, they're each a $10 thing,
but
they put all 4 of them together, which makes me sad because I only want Jaina.
Yeah, that's like every time they had a bundle with a rogue portrait and a priest portrait, and I choked down the vomit in my mouth, and I bought it anyway for the priest portrait.
I mean, I would hope that at some point, maybe not for a long time, but they would offer these piecemeal, maybe for $10, or maybe if it's been long enough, maybe for 1,000 gold or whatever. They've been doing that, where once stuff gets reasonably old, they offer it for gold. So
I mean, what would be really cool is if these were what they use to replace, because they're going to have to do a new batch of Tavern Hero or whatever it is, once you've done 200 levels on the Tavern Pass or on the rewards track, like they need to do a refresh of those. So that would be a pretty cool thing for them to throw in after you've gotten all the other ones.
Speaking of gold, by the way, we are going to have an earlier mini set. We don't know exactly when, but we know we're going to have an earlier mini set than usual for this expansion. So save your gold.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually going to be able to spend gold for the golden mini set this time.
I may also, 'cause
Wow.
I think I've got like 9,000 gold saved up already because I just hit most of what I needed right off the bat. So, and I profited off the pre-release Tavern Brawl. So, also we have a new portrait for Warrior, Dragonbane Boulder Fist bundle, which is surprisingly hard to say, for 1,000 runestones or $9.99 USD. That comes with the portrait and 5 warrior packs. And we have a Twilight Lazul bundle, which is a priest portrait and 5 priest packs for 1,000 runestones or $9.99 USD, which is a choice. I buy a lot of priest portraits. This is one I'm not going to. I don't know who loves Lazul to keep getting, like, I know how Warlock players felt about Nemzi after a point, I think. Because like, I don't know who loves Lazul enough to keep justifying making portraits of her, but like, I'm not that person at all. And it does not take much for me to buy a priest portrait. But
So I'll say this. I tend to only use female portraits or old gods.
yeah.
And I think if you are limiting yourself in that way, then any portrait that sort of falls under that restriction is, merits potential. Now,
In some
Priest
classes,
does have
yeah.
Tyrande and I forget the other one.
And Zyrella and Whitemane.
I mean, Zyrella is really the best, but
Yeah.
yeah, Priest does have many, but it's a different vibe. Maybe some people like the vibe. I do agree. It's not my vibe.
Yeah. I also just kind of like wish we could move away from the trolls in general, just with some of the cultural appropriation concerns with trolls. Like, we could kind of let that go
reasonable.
a little bit.
That's fair.
Like, Lazul had her place in time, and that's past, and we can kind of move on. We have plenty of other priest characters to work with, but neither here nor there. But that is the news. So now we are going to go back to Decksplanations and talk about one of the other decks that we kind of started to talk about, but we have some detailed notes, which is that, well, that's a hunter card, but we have we have some more detail on that. So we're going to go talk about Imbue Druid.
All right, so we're going to talk about Imbue Druid, and I saw Hat today refer to it as Imbuid, which is almost hard to say, but it does work. So the list that I have here, this was actually a list that was kind of propagated before the VS report today, and it's the exact same as the VS one, except for Zacho took out Zephyrus for Grifta, which honestly is probably correct. Having played some with Zephyrus and Grifta, I think they have a similar role, but probably Grifta is better on average, although Zephyrus could have his moments. But I included this list because it's what I've been playing, and it has like more data on it in terms of Mulligan and stuff like that in HS Guru. So basically, what we're doing in this deck is we're playing this is a Hamul Rune Totem deck. So it only has nature spells in it. You start with your hero power imbued, and then every time you play a spell, and that's now any spell, including the coin, including anything that you get off photosynthesis, every time you play 2 spells, it will imbue your hero power any further. Plus, you're also running Bitterbloom Knight and Flutterwing Guardian because they're essentially 2 spells in one. They imbue it just in one card. So we're playing lots of cheap spells. And we're playing like Sing Along Buddy and Dreambound Disciple. And this is like the one deck where we're a pretty aggressive deck, and we're also trying to hit our hero power button like a lot. Normally, the advice for aggro decks is spend all your mana not on your hero power. But in this case, after the first couple turns, like turn 3, maybe turn 4. Sometimes you wait until turn 5, but in general, like you are trying to use your hero power. As soon as it's imbued 3 times, 4 times, you're using it because it's already good value. And you kind of run out of stuff if you play all your spells and then you try to go with your hero power. It's not so much that we're trying to make a really big hero power and then pressure the opponent. We're trying to make a big hero power while pressuring the opponent and using that value as we go along. And then your spells are pretty cheap, so you can be using your remaining mana to keep buffing it up. And then, of course, Sing Along Buddy is your really big play. But with Sing Along Buddy, it's less I say really big play, but really it's more your early game pressure if possible. Like you can use it later to get 2 13/13s, but it's actually better on like 3 with an innervate to get you 2 3/3s. Like
or after a board clear, right? Because like then that helps you just repopulate right away. Like you generally want to have constant pressure with this deck. So like what Sing Along Buddy lets you do is after you just get wiped, okay, well now I've got 2 whatevers. And the thing that you also need to clear, because if you don't clear it, I'm going to have more whatevers on the following turn. So it creates some board tension and makes it so that they can't just try to use single target removal. Because like one of the things that makes it really hard for a control deck is that they can't get card advantage easily, because if they're killing one of these golems or giants, I forget what the term is that for what they actually are, and they're using a card to do it, that's negative card advantage for them, which is like death to a control deck. It's the equivalent of using your hero power instead of playing cards as a tempo deck, right? Because they're spending a card to get rid of your nothing, where they want to be spending cards to get rid of at worst 1 for 1, but ideally they want to clear multiple of your things at once. But if your things are just a hero power, then they're never getting card advantage against you.
One way that I often use the Sing Along Buddy, if I have it early, I will try to use it early. You can even tempo it against some things. So like Rogue has nothing on their board, especially if you think that they're like a pirate rogue and not a Protoss rogue. Like you can just play it on 2 or even coin it on 1. If you have another innervate, so that you can even get a couple of 2/2s with the Sing Along Buddy and then be like, we'll clear this. And it might take them a couple turns to clear it. Or you coin it out or innervate it out on 3. And because you were playing stuff on 1 and 2, you already have 3/3s, sometimes even 4/4s. That's really tough for them to deal with. And then the second Sing Along Buddy, after they clear the first one, you're like, psych, here's another one. Or it's gotten a little bit later in the game. So yeah, at that point, if you don't kill them early, then you have to start meeting out your threats a little bit. And if you already do have a really big board, just with aggro in general, early game, you generally want to just push pressure. Mid game, late game, if you have enough to win if they don't clear, don't play more. Keep in mind that some decks like DH can heal a lot. So what looks like enough may not be enough if they can heal, but you do want to consider meeting it out a little bit later in the game, unless you're at a situation like where, well, if they clear this, then I'm not going to win because they have a wheel or something up. But early on, like you don't have to wait for the Sing Along Buddy necessarily. You don't want to float mana with stuff. A lot of the early turns in this deck is figuring out how to not float mana. So you generally want to use innervates and stuff early, because that gets your hero power rolling faster, but using it like on 1 to make like a lot of your stuff costs 2 and your hero power costs 2. So if you don't have a 1 cost spell, it can smooth out your turn 1 or your turn 3 really nicely. And that just helps, and Dreambound Disciple also smooths out a curve if you have her. Although sometimes I won't play, if I draw her on 4 and I don't have a 1 cost thing and I don't have an innervate, sometimes I'll wait until 5 to play her with some 2 cost thing, just because, again, it gets awkward with floating mana. In general, though, Dreambound Disciple is really good. You play her on an odd mana turn or just in general as soon as you can, because she's a 3-mana 3/3 that saves you 4 mana.
It's a 3-mana 3/3 that says your battle cry and death rattle, your next hero power costs 0. By the way,
Yes.
if you don't remember what that card does.
If you don't actually know what the card is.
You've probably seen it, but you may not recognize it by name. So
yes, that is Dreambound Disciple is the one that makes your hero power cost 0. So it's extremely useful because you're trying to hit your hero power. You will run out of cards if you're not hitting your hero power, actually, because we don't actually have a ton of draw. We do have cards that make other cards. So Horn of Plenty. I was calling it Horn of Nature earlier, but it's called Horn of Plenty. That is the 2-mana card that discover a nature spell and it costs 2 less. So keep in mind when you're discovering it, if you pick something that costs 2 or less, you can play it for free right then. So then the Horn of Plenty plus whatever you just got, bam, that's another imbue on your hero power. Or if you get something that costs 3, now it costs 1. I'll usually go for cheap things off of the Horn of Plenty, just because, again, every spell you have now imbues your hero power now, or goes towards imbuing your hero power now rather than later. But occasionally there'll be a more expensive spell that's worth waiting for, such as like Flipper Friends is sometimes really nice. That's the one that summons all the rushing otters that do have a really sad death sound. But if you can stand the really sad death sound of the really adorable otters, that can be very helpful to get back on the board. But oftentimes I'll just go for something cheap. You can also get another Shaladrosel, by the way, off Horn of Plenty, which in longer matchups where you're going to need that reach can be really helpful to have an extra one. And they're not necessarily expecting you to have a second Shaladrosel.
And it's a bunch of spells, right? So
yeah.
In terms of just like ripping one off, not for winning, but just for the additional spell upgrades.
Yeah, it's two imbues, right? I mean, it's because you give the Shaladrosel itself plus 3 spells. It's 3 spells and 2 minions. So it's 2 imbues, which is relevant. And you'll get some draw. You don't necessarily need to run a lot of draw on the deck, because you will get draw from photosynthesis and from and from reforestation. Well, no, reforestation is just going to draw. You'll get some from Horn of Plenty as well, and occasionally from Symbiosis. I think a couple of the choose ones will let you draw also. And then you also have Wrath and Reforestation. So Reforestation is the 2-cost spell that draws you a spell or a minion, and then if you let it sit in your hand for long enough, it does both. And Wrath, you're generally trying to use it for 1. I think if you can, I mean, you'll use it for 3 if you need to kill something, but I think you want to try to use that for 1 to draw, because you don't have that much draw, but you'll get other draw. Like even Ungoro Brochure is fine, but you generally want to let it go flip to the draw 2 spells that cost 1 less side, because like you have minions, and the minions that you have are generally good, but that's not what you're looking to draw, especially when you're spending 4 mana to draw them. You probably want to discount the things that you're drawing. Yeah,
I'll mostly draw minions if I'm like looking for Malorn specifically. But you don't necessarily, your game plan is not, oh, I win by playing Malorn. Like Malorn is I didn't win by pressuring kind of play.
And it corrupts Shaladrosel.
And it corrupts Shaladrosel, which you don't have to do, but it is obviously, if you're needing that extra reach, it gives you extra reach to have a corrupted Shaladrosel. But remember that even when it's not corrupted, it's still a 5 damage AoE plus 5 damage if you've stuck anything on the board with the Nightmare, plus a sap to get rid of a taunt or something like that. So it can still be worth it.
Just remember, because this came up in a slightly different scenario in a game I played today. Now, I wasn't the one who did it, it was my opponent. When you play the elusive minion that gives your hero elusive, that also means you can't target yourself. So if you want to heal off of the photosynthesis, do that before you play the elusive minion, because you won't be able to do it after.
That is a good thing to remember. I feel like I don't think I had that exact situation, but I did have a situation where I wanted to put the Nightmare on the elusive minion. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, right.
And then your opponent gets to see the arrow going at the elusive minion and then going back and then going again. And then they just like, okay. Yep. That's what
Yep.
elusive means. It means nobody. It's only a couple of priest minions that let you target anyway.
Shroud, not hexproof.
Yes.
Shroud, not hexproof. The choose one cards, like it's almost like a stick up. There are some good cards in there. Grace of the Great Wolf gives you 2/3/2 wolves with rush. That can be a pretty strong play. Spark of Life is the mage, choose one, discover a mage spell or discover a druid spell.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
you
just an
play
imbue by itself.
Symbiosis,
Yeah.
and then it's free, and then you get another spell. Sometimes the mage pool is pretty good. You generally don't want to pick the paladin minion or the rogue weapon because they're not spells, unless you really need a 3/6 lifesteal taunt, which sometimes you do, or you really need the poison off of the rogue weapon. But in general, you're looking for a cheap spell. Morbid Swarm, I take that a lot. The Death Knight one that summon 2/1/1 ants or spend 2 corpses to deal 4 damage to a minion, like both halves of that can be really helpful. And if I'm playing Symbiosis on 1, I'll often take it just because then I've played 2 spells and I have 2 ants on 1, so it's an imbue. It's even better in a sense than having played the Living Roots.
Yeah. And like the priest one, Twilight Influence, destroy a minion with real lesser attack or summon a random 2-cost minion, is very good for killing leeches.
It is good for killing leeches. I killed a Torith with it today. My opponent was not pleased.
Oh. Will do too, yeah.
I was like, I'm going to have to trade off my whole board and I still won't be through this. Oh, wait. No, I don't. Before you do stuff in this deck, play out all of your spells because you're often discovering, and definitely play your spells before you hit your hero power, except for in the circumstance where you want to like Mark of the Wild on your hero power. But otherwise, you're playing your spells first, then your hero power, because then your hero power is bigger from you having played the spells. And it doesn't have rush or anything, so it usually doesn't matter that you played it at the end. Remember that you can mouse over the hero power to see whether you need 1 or 2 spells to imbue it again. Sometimes that matters for whether you're playing 1 more expensive spell or 2 cheaper spells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that sometimes gets a little bit cut off on mobile. It's hard to see that line on mobile because I was trying to do that. That was what I was playing in the game store, and I was hovering over like, oh, I would like to know if I have 1 or 2 spells before I imbue, and I can't see because it's cut off. So
that is frustrating. Yeah. Hopefully they will do something about that. Yeah. For the mulligan, Innervate is actually amazing to keep in the mulligan in this because
makes sense.
It's just Symbiosis and Living Roots, 1-cost spells, keep them. Dreambound, it's amazing because that's the one that saves you mana on 2 hero powers. Bitter Bloom is also good because it's a full imbue in 1 card and it puts a minion on the board while it's doing it. Sing Along Buddy, I usually do keep. I was surprised to see that it didn't have the greatest mulligan win rate on HS Guru, but it was still pretty good. So I would say if you have, especially like if you're on the coin, like you have an Innervate, you're going to be able to get that out quickly with a hero power that's innervated, that's imbued at least once, if not twice, then you might want to keep it, but maybe not just by itself, especially on the play. And Mark of the Wild kind of similarly. It can be a strong early play, although I really like to find Mark of the Wild early off of the Horn of Plenty, because then it's a full imbue, because it's free after you play Horn of Plenty. Matchups, we are good. This deck picked up steam after the Wheel Warlock picked up steam, because we're 57% into the Wheel Warlock. 55% into Cliff Dive Demon Hunter. This is according to HSR past day Diamond through Legend. Very good into Mage, both Protoss Imbue Mage and not Protoss Imbue Mage. Pretty good into Cove Rogue, not good into Protoss Rogue. That is our worst matchup. And by worst matchup, I mean like 40-60. It's not hugely polarized, this deck, which is one thing that I like about it. And we're like, even with a bunch of stuff, Hunter, Crewmate DH, Tree Paladin, Protoss Mage, Fishing Priest, which is like the Menagerie Priest, Terran Warrior, Spell Mage. Negative into Zarimi and Menagerie Paladin, but only very slightly. So Protoss Rogue is really the main bad matchup. I didn't see stats on our matchup into Murmur Shaman, but I ran into a couple of them earlier today and lost both of them. So anecdotally, maybe that's not a good matchup for us because they had a bunch of hexes and then they go off and we don't really have a way to deal with a sudden spike board like that.
Yeah. I would say, like, in terms of how to play against this deck, how to beat it, I mean, if you're controlling it, you want to try and contain the wide boards, but then have some kind of counter pressure once they are at, like, 1 minion at a time.
Yes, the counter pressure makes it, if you're making it so that they are having to trade with their big minion, then you've probably won the game. Like, they're down to 1 big minion a turn and they're having to trade because you put some pressure on them, you've won, most likely.
Yeah, like, the times that I won as Blood DK, it was because I was able to set things up where it's like I was high enough life that I could sort of take it for a little bit until I could swing the board. Like, not just clear, because just clearing is not going to be good enough, but swing it so that it's like, you know, now I'm the one pressuring.
Yeah. And if you are the Imbue Druid, so in the early game, it depends on who you're fighting. It's the classic, like, are you the beat down or are you the control? If you're facing a really aggressive deck like Cove Rogue, the Pirate Rogue, then you want to just you want to make sure they don't totally overrun you. But most matchups, you're trying to go face as much as you can while preventing them from getting like really good value trades that would destroy your board. So, or maybe protecting like a sing-along buddy or something like that, but you're mostly going face when you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the late game, if it's the kind of thing where you're going to run them out of stuff, just trade, keep yourself alive. If it's the kind of thing where if they really get their late game going, like a DK or a Warlock, then you're trying to make it so that they don't have enough clears and they can't get to that point where they completely swing the board. So whenever you have an opportunity to go face with your 13-13, you're going face with your 13-13. And remember that when you put pressure like that on a deck by going face, it's hard for them to go face in response, right? Like, they have to clear your thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If they're at 13 life, then every 13-13 you make, they have to clear.
Right.
Every turn. And in the mirror, it's not just winning the hero power race, it's also not falling too far behind on the board. I had a mirror today where I was like 3 imbues ahead, but I still lost because I haven't been hitting the button enough while I was doing that. And so they had more minions. And we don't really have clears. So if they have more minions, it's hard for us to catch back up.
Yeah, some of these lists are running Dream Planner Zephyrus, which can be a clear or it can be face damage. So like keep that in mind. Like sometimes you just need to get them in range of like some sort of a Zephyrus. Now a lot of the burn in Zephyrus or the game ending cards in Zephyrus tend to be expensive. Like I don't think Pyroblast is there anymore.
Pyroblast is in it.
Oh,
yeah.
It is in it. Yeah. So there's Pyroblast. There's like, I'm trying to think of like what else there was.
Fireball. There's the warrior one that does 4 unless you're at below 15 health, in which case it's a fireball.
I know there was like lava burst and not Shadow Flame. Why am I the 1 mana deal 4 discard a card? Soulfire.
Yeah.
But there are also some expensive burn spells in there, so you just want to be aware. Oh, it was like one of them was King Crush. So it was so like some of them are expensive. So don't expect it. You're not always going to be able to play that and then kill them in the same turn, because sometimes it gives you like a 9 and a 10. And you're just going to have to meter this out over the next couple turns. But also you can kind of plan with those in mind. And sometimes you just need a clear and you can just get a clear out of it.
Yeah, if you are playing Zephyrus, you might want to play him before you really need him for that reason.
Yeah. And also see what's in it before you attack, because there was one game. The one game I think I won with the Wheel Warlock was because they had a board and they attacked first and then played Zephyrus and didn't realize that Savage Roar was one of the cards that they could get, and they left me with 2 life. So if they had been able to put that 2 attack on any of their minions, they would have won. So you make sure to play it before you do anything else that turn to see what it's going to do for you.
Same with like Malorn.
Yeah.
Play that first, see what's in the box, and think about whether there's something that is going to be helpful in this situation out of the wild gods. Like once you play it enough, you get a sense of kind of what your wild god options are. You won't always get the one that you need, but you can often get something good. But yeah, there's not a lot, except for the warlock one, there's not a lot of like do damage and end the game right now.
Omen can if you're really close.
Omen can if you're really close. The warlock one can do a lot, especially if you have like the dream is you play Malorn, you play the warlock one, you play Shaladrisil.
Yeah.
And it's corrupted and it costs them 7 life, and then you can also do other stuff in the same turn. But that doesn't happen all that often. But you're usually at least getting something big. The Druid one can be useful from Malorn. If you're sort of out of stuff, Ashemain can be nice. Because sometimes you do just kind of run out of stuff.
Oof.
Yep. I did Ashemain in the mirror, and it got me 2 copies of their Malorn and 2 Shaladrisils.
Well, that's
3
gross.
less. Which also told me that they hadn't drawn either of those yet. I did feel a little bad.
No, you didn't.
Did
don't
they not
lie.
have very many cards left?
I don't think they had very many cards left, and they'd managed to not draw either.
Because I feel like that's the only way you get duplicates is if they don't. But maybe
maybe they. I'll have to check the replay. Maybe they only had like 3-4 cards in their deck. In which case, that's extremely unfortunate that they hadn't drawn either of those yet.
They're both bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a mostly empty hand when I did that.
Yeah. Scenarios can also give you like either a little bit of extra damage or some taunts, depending if you forest alert scenarios.
Yes, that can actually be a really good hit. It can be a bloodlust, it can be taunts, it can be a combination of the two. Like, don't discount the extra health to keep your board alive, especially if it's something where the board clears are damage dependent. Get yourself out of range of a Shaladrisil type of thing. So that can be useful. One thing on photosynthesis, that's the one that heals 3 mana spell, heal 6, get 3 druid spells. You can heal your big dudes with that too if your health total is not in danger. You don't it doesn't say heal yourself, it says heal anything, and so sometimes you can use that to heal a minion on the board. And I had one today where my opponent carefully put both my minions to 2 health, setting up a clear. So I photosynthesized one of them back up to like a 6/6. They were probably not pleased, even though my health wasn't very high. Flutterwing is one exception to pressing like the button on turn 4 is if you Flutterwing on 4, because usually the button on turn 4 is not as good as a 4/4 taunt divine shield, and it imbued your hero power. So that's one exception. It's a good card in the deck. When I was theory crafting this, I wasn't sure whether we would want to run things like Bitter Bloom and Flutterwing as opposed to just more spells, but we totally do.
I mean, it's worth 2 spells. Like you said, it's 2 spells of 1, and it's casting 2 spells and getting a 4/4 divine shield taunt, which is you would play a spell that summoned you a 4/4 divine shield taunt for 4 mana, and also a 0-cost spell that didn't do anything in this deck if you could.
Yes, that was in the same card. Yeah.
Yes.
that is all important. So. Trail Mix, I guess, last thing here. So VS said Trail Mix is the worst card in the deck, but there's nothing better. Trail Mix is the one that gives you 2 extra mana next turn. You don't need to save this for like Malorn or Shaladrisil. You can if you're expecting to need them. And if you have other stuff to do, like you're not prioritizing playing Trail Mix, again, like it's not the best card in the deck. So like you're not keeping it in the mull, you're not prioritizing playing it. But if you have 2 mana and you think you're going to be able to the next turn, therefore get out like Dreambound Disciple and a sing-along and I can use Living Roots, and then I can hit my hero power if I do Trail Mix now. Like, if it's setting up for a really good turn next turn, then play it. Otherwise, you're usually doing other stuff. My main point there is you don't have to save it for Malorn. You can use it kind of whenever it makes sense to play it in your curve. Because, again, we're kind of a pressure deck, not a Shaladra Solar Bust deck.
Yeah. Though I do wonder if Raven Idol's worth that slot, right? Because that's just, again, 2 spells in one, and one of them costs 1.
It might be okay just for the because we kind of need we have trouble sometimes with that last odd mana crystal. So having another 1-cost spell, that might actually be worth it. Listener, if you try this, let us know. But I do take Raven Idol off of things. There has been tourist versions of this running around. I played a fair bit of it. It does look in the stats like it's a little bit worse than this version we've been talking about. Even though the Marooned Archmage is a good card and can just run just like win mirrors and stuff like that by itself if a Marooned Archmage sticks, which it does often. The Marooned Archmage is the mage card, 3 mana, 3/4, that makes your first spell each turn cost 2 less. If it sticks, it's a lot. Yeah. But I found when I was playing the tourist card, first of all, Mista is essentially another dead card in your deck and you already have Hamul.
Really?
It just, like, yes, you can get multiple Shaladra cells, but I found that was happening so rarely.
Yeah. Spells you're casting don't give you a ton of value. You're casting them to spam them for the most part.
What about, like, ones that give you more stuff, right? Like
That can be good, but you've also got things like Mark of the Wild in there that can hit your opponent. Living Roots can hit your own face.
Fair.
Yeah.
And you don't want to not be casting those spells for 3 turns. So you're just kind of taking your chances with it. You also have to find time to get it down. Like, it's not useless in the deck. I just found myself wishing I had drawn other stuff oftentimes when I drew him. Tide Pools is kind of nice to get. It can be awkward to find when you're going to pay the 3 mana to get it, but then it was good refill. But so was Photosynthesis, which is what this deck is running instead of Tide Pools.
Yeah. I also wonder why we're running Trail Mix instead of the drink in here, because the drink is 3 spells for 1 that actually do something, as opposed to Trail Mix.
Oh, you mean the mage one? If we were doing him,
yeah. If we're doing,
that actually might be a reason to do the tourist. Yeah,
yeah. If we're doing the tourist and we're not running the drink, that seems kind of weird to me, because like that seems like one of the reasons you would run the tourist more so than the Maroon Archmage even.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put a note to that effect. Comment. Try the mage drink instead of the trail mix. It's a fancier snack anyway than the trail mix.
Yes.
The sea breeze chalice. This just seems much more
it's premium,
high class.
You see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that Seabreeze Chalice would be like one of the draws for touring.
Right. Yeah. It would be like I would think maybe it's just bad, but I can't imagine,
or maybe it's just this list.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just this list that just didn't run it. And maybe if they ran better cards in the win rate would be better.
It could be that people are already doing this and I just pulled the wrong list. Or it could be that people are not doing this and now they will be.
Yeah.
Because they're hearing it from us. So I did put in the show notes, we have a link to a lot of the decks that we talked about in Decksplanations and to Imbue Druid lists, if you were curious about the specific lists that we're talking about. I also had here a Pirate Rogue that I didn't talk about in Life and Ladder. Basically, I played Pirate Rogue. I'm really bad at Rogue. That's the end.
Maybe Rogue just sucks.
Rogue's really good when my opponents play it, but I was like, look at the huge boards they're making. This is so much stats so early. I like making big stats really early. And then I was just like roping out every turn when I was trying to play it. All right. Well, I think that will do it.
Cool. Well, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out that section on the website at Concede.com, and you will find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats at our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. And write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Coin Concedes.
I will coin concede to my friend who is pregnant and due, I think, literally tomorrow. So any day now, and it's very exciting. This is her second child, and I was working with her when she had her first kid, and she brought him to work a lot, and it was very cute and sweet. And now I'm the kind of, I try not to, when I see this kid now, be like, oh my gosh, you've gotten so big. I remember when, because I remember as a kid, I hated that. But now I understand where this comes from for adults. It's really hard not to say it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also coin concede to McBanterface. After I said that I had faced him and that this was like, welcome to the big leagues now, he actually commented in the Discord and said, well played. And that he needed that top deck, which, you know, I think it's pretty clear that I was outplayed as well. But I did have a good start. So, and
he is one of the good ones. He is one of the good ones.
I very much appreciate it. So,
well, I'm going to coin concede to my oldest daughter, who had her. I mentioned the school play, but that was also her last high school play, this past weekend. So, which, God, I'm old, but also like, but yeah, but you know, really proud of her, and you know, it's kind of weird that was her last play, but, or at least last high school play. I'm sure that she'll do more in college, but I'm not necessarily going to be spending the whole weekend doing that when she's in college, because she probably won't even tell us that she's doing it. Yeah, but it was really proud of her, and it was worth all the running around this weekend. We'll put it that way. It was the play was High School Musical, by the way, which I have been informed by my wife is that generation's Grease, which is also depressing. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was old by now.
Yeah, I remember High School Musical. Now. Yeah.
High School Musical was like 2006. And my daughter was born in 2007. So, yeah.
Oof. Yeah. Well, and I was in middle school in 2006.
Yep. So was I. Well, also because we figured out that we're like almost exactly the same age. But
sorry, Wicked.
Yeah, I was in the workforce, firmly in the workforce in 2006. So, you know, yeah. Anyway, I'll go dig my own grave while we finish up the rest of the podcast. So,
well, I guess I will just do this here rather than giving extra editing to myself. I'm going to coin concede to those who join us in chat to let us know things like you can't run Chalice because it's not a nature spell and it would turn off Hamul. So,
thank you, chat. We appreciate it. And patrons, you get to listen to things like that with the raw audio.
Yes. Well, so that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm. And as another podcast once said, don't forget to press your hero power. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now.
I concede.
Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested, Imbuid.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.